Welcome to Office Hours with Dr. Peace. I'm Dr. Peace, and I couldn't be happier tonight to have you joining us because my guest is Chris Miner, the first guest I ever had on my podcast. And boy, a lot has changed for you since last time we talked. I just can't wait to hear you talk because I read your stuff. When I'm reading what you've written, I hear your voice, I see your face. It's just good stuff, Chris. Really good stuff. And I'm not trying to just flatter you. I mean, some of the pieces that I read them out loud to my husband. I think on them. Good stuff. So, what do you want to talk about?
Coming in off a heck of a day at work. Work at the county public defender's office. People hear that and they're like, "Oh, you're an attorney. Give me legal advice." I'm not an attorney. I'm getting my PhD in criminology, law, and justice, not a JD. But anyway, what my job encompasses is basically doing a lot of interviews, spending a lot of time inside the jail. And I work with people who are defending their cases, basically leading up to sentencing. They've already been found guilty, or more often not found guilty, but taken a guilty plea. Generally, you take a plea. It's not to get too deep into criminology, but we're supposed to have what's called the due process, which goes by the Constitution, speedy trial, jury of your peers, etc. Unfortunately, we're doing what's called the crime control theory, which is weird because it's anti-constitutional, but it's very public and very upfront in what they're doing. It's to save money. Basically, you expedite the court cases. And what this leads to is somebody commits a crime, or they think someone's committed a crime. They don't show you the evidence. They just say that we have you, and you're going to get 30 years. But if you take this deal, you only get 3 or 4 years, which leads to a lot of people who are distrustful of the criminal injustice system as it is to say, "Oh shit, what do they have? Am I going to get convicted for this even though I'm not guilty?" And they cop a plea and take a case. When that happens, you never know exactly who is innocent or guilty, or if the guilty party is getting away with murder or whatever happens to be. What I do is mitigation. I look at things and try to explain the defendant's story. Why they did it, what kind of circumstances. Everything from mental health records, and a lot of this goes back to sequestering and getting records from people when they were juveniles and minors, and you see stuff that wasn't addressed properly at the time, and then it ends up playing out in real time in the future with some extremely violent acts, and sometimes it's not extremely violent, sometimes it's just drug-related crimes, but it's generally drugs, the drug addiction that's spurred from untreated mental health as a youngster. I interview them to bring this out, see what kind of records I need to track down. And the way I explain my job to an actual person who's sitting in jail, and some people aren't in jail, they're actually released pre-trial, but I only work about 3% of the cases the public defender gets. I'm on a grant and they can't afford to have a lot of us. So basically, if I'm taking your case, it's a pretty major case. If it's a DUI, then somebody got hurt really bad. But it's a lot of murder cases. Unfortunately, a lot of sex offender cases, a lot of child sex offender cases, and a lot of child porn. It's crazy what is going on out there. And of course, where we live, there is a lot of gun violence going on, especially with the juveniles, so that's another thing. But when I explain what I do to the person across the table from me, basically at a sentencing hearing, and that's after guilt has been proven or settled upon, the state's attorney gets to make a final statement. So the state's attorney is going to rip this person apart, bring up every bad thing they've ever done in their life. Then the public defender is going to do the opposite, paint this person as wonderful. Then right before the sentencing happens, the last thing that the judge will say is we'll look at the defendant and say, "Now if you would like to give what's called a statement of allocution," where you get to basically talk to me and explain yourself to me. I've seen these statements do wonders. I've seen people perform to the fact where I'm like, this guy's getting 5 years and they get probation. Certain judges are very open to this, but certain judges are so distrustful they really don't believe anything anybody's saying. I've seen the hardest thugs cry, and it's worked. I've seen people beg for another chance and get another chance. But of course, I've also seen people in there trying to relitigate stuff and proclaim their innocence after saying they were guilty. Again, they may not have been guilty, might have been somewhat coerced into it, and those people not getting a break. So it is a very stressful job. I can tell a couple stories a little bit later that I am allowed to tell because everything's public. But I answered that question, so I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Dr. Peace.
When I worked in child welfare, I was in court a lot. And I was always fascinated by even the physical layout of the courtroom. Doing child welfare, I was always so disheartened that these were people who were accused of mistreating their children. Sometimes it was things like environmental neglect, but even when it was the worst of cases, they were treated, not in all cases, but in most cases, as less than. And the social worker in me just, I can't take that. And when I read your stuff, I think, Chris, what you're doing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but when I read about what you're doing, you're a voice for people who really don't have much of a voice. And even if they were allowed to be heard, they don't know what to say. I've seen people sit at that table and the judge say that thing you're talking about when they're about to lose custody of their children. And I've heard the judge say, do you have anything to say? And I've seen person after person just not have anything. They didn't have a mitigate. I mean, I don't even know if there is such a thing in child welfare. I highly doubt it. But anyway, I love what you do.
Well, here, there's a lot of ways we can go. I could tell you how I ended up with this job, including my story, because a lot of people, I mean, I don't know if anybody viewed the last episode, but I'm someone who's been to prison and all that good stuff. So I can tell you how that all went down and how I ended up here. Or I can tell you some war stories from working at the public defender's office. I won't give the names, but again, the cases have been adjudicated. It's all public information. I work with juveniles. I can't tell you any of that kind of stuff because even the slightest identifier could cause problems.
How does it feel having been on both sides and now here you are trying to help people? And like you said, the cards don't always go your way. Talk about your feelings.
The thing that got me upset talking about, and I'm going to talk about it because it's really important, is why I decided to do this. My entire life is pain and suffering. Not personally, I'm actually doing the best I've ever done. It is bad because all I deal with is prison, prison, prison. It's basically my education. I am a PhD candidate at UIC and I teach my own class. I took this semester off. Yeah, I got about a year and 4 months left, hopefully, if everything goes well. So I decided to go the school route, but then I also work in this. But then my personal life. I mean, you can't shut this shit off. When I go home, it's constantly of Googling what's going on, what laws are being changed. Oh, no laws are being changed. How's the Trump administration dealing with incarceration? Well, that spills over to ICE and all that stuff. It does wear on you because many times I joke about this, but I mean it. I really wish I would have got into veterinarian. I wish I would be like doing surgery on snakes and shit like that. But no, I had to decide to make my world revolve around pain. But it spurs from a lot of survivors' guilt I deal with because I got out and I left so many people behind. And when I mean behind, I don't necessarily mean in prison. Me, we'll probably talk about what I did later, but I didn't kill nobody or rape nobody. It was non-violent offenses. So the prisons I were out, everyone was doing about 10 years tops. So it wasn't that hard. I mean, it's prison. It sucks, but it wasn't that hard. But so many of these people got out and they are not doing well. And we'll get specific at the end because it will probably upset me, but I think it's a very powerful message I have to say that a lot of people look at me like, oh, you just get out and shit falls into place, especially if you're a white guy, because you can't downplay the racial aspect of this bullshit. I'm just collateral damage of this United States of America's war on black men. Yes, other people get incarcerated, but nowhere near the level. Right. We over-police black folks, we over-incarcerate black folks big time. But back to why I'm doing what I do and how it affects me, it does seem like I owe it. Like everything just kind of fell into place for me. I call myself lucky a lot. A lot of people have said, well, you make your own luck. I don't know if that's true. I have bumped in to the most amazing people along the way. I didn't build myself. I was put together by a bunch of other people. And it's a good thing and a bad thing because when I fuck up, they notice and they get a hold of me. And I don't know if you ever noticed, but it happens every time. I will say some fucking stupid shit, or I will just do some stupid shit. I'm just being real. Of course, I delete it as fast as I can, so not everyone gets to see it. And this is a job that it never really pays off. There's been 2 cases that have really bugged me lately. Both of them, technically, we won. First situation, Brown, we'll just call him, not his name. This gentleman, 19 years old, when he was 18, no crime in his background at all. No speeding tickets, no nothing. Our situation at Walmart was this: he was in a car with a man and a woman. He was the passenger. Don't know if it was his girlfriend or anything like that, but there was a fight. They're pulling out of Walmart right around Christmas time. As they're pulling out, there's some kind of altercation. He gets out of the car. This is all on multiple cameras because they record everything in a Walmart parking lot. So he gets out of the car. I guess he didn't grab his phone, so the car pulls up about 10 yards, throws his phone out the window, goes a little further, and they realize they didn't break his phone, so they back up over his phone to make sure it's broken. Then they pull out. Okay, where's the crime there other than what happened? Oh, wait for it, there's more. He had a backpack. So when he saw that his phone was broken, he went to his backpack and pulled out what they call a machine gun. It wasn't really a machine gun, it was a Glock altered with what's called a switch. What a switch is, it turns a regular gun into an automatic gun. And he also had an extended clip with, I believe, 14 bullets in it. So he aims and he shoots 14 bullets over the course of 4 seconds at this car. Nobody gets hit, no vehicles get hit. It was at the exits, there wasn't many cars passing. Now, regardless of how fucked up that might sound, and it is fucked up. It doesn't just sound fucked up, it's messed up. You don't react like that in that situation. Of course, you also don't carry a gun. So anyway, I get to work with this kid. I call him a kid even though he's technically over 18. He's still a kid. If you saw the picture, you might have seen the picture because I posted it because it made one of these champagne uncensored stupid fucking pages. But anyway, I work with him, get to know him. He's just such a cool kid. But then again, all these people doing this shit are cool kids at some time. They just have that ability to switch it off somehow when they get extremely mad. And I'm working with him on his allocution statement that I talked about, getting letters of support for him. It's hard to get because he doesn't really have much of a family. He was in DCFS foster homes as an early kid. Brother was killed. A cutter, which is a reoccurring thing I am seeing that I did not expect when I get this job. The cutting thing. It was just completely, how do we not know this was going to turn into a bad apple and was not waiting to happen? And then, one of the interviews, I'm like, well, I see that after like age 15, there was no more mental health stuff. Like, yeah, just there was no one to make me go. I just didn't go. So it was not addressed. And this is bad because he could get a community-based sentence, which basically means probation, but the chances of that are like negative infinity. Yes, it's your first offense, but as the judge put it, your first offense was a fucking doozy. And I think the judge even said fucking, because it was just, I don't think the judge wanted to send him away. But the infraction was just too serious. And the judge gave him 4 years, which was the minimum. So technically, we won. We got him the minimum. It sure as hell didn't feel like it. The minimum, a win, is sending a kid to 4 years in prison. And even worse than that, we thought it was a 50% case, which in Illinois, I'll break this down. If you get sentenced to 4 years in Illinois for most offenses, I don't know why it's this way, but you're going to do about a year and a half. Immediately, as soon as you're sentenced, they chopped it in half. So 4 years turns into 2 years, and then they knock 6 months off in good time. They give you the good time up front because it's way more painful to lose the good time if it's already there and you know it exists. So we're, not me, but the attorney, and we're telling his family, like, he should be out. He's got, 300 days served in the county. He should be out in 6 months. And we were wrong. It was an 85% case. So still a big infraction. He's young. He'll be back in about 2 years. But it's just scary what's going to happen to him in prison. I've been to prison. I was old and street smart as fuck, and it wasn't really that bad. He's young and impressionable. And I'm just scared he might come out a little bit harder. We're going to do a fundraiser for him. I told him, I'm going to get you money for a TV. I want you to sit in your fucking cell and watch TV for 2 hours straight. I wish you'd read. But reading brings us to the second case. So that one, again, it should be a win. It sure as hell don't feel like a win when the guy you're working with gets 4 years in prison. The next one, Mr. Jackson will say, 61-year-old, can't read or write. 7 felonies and 15 misdemeanors. Every single felony he's went to prison. He serves about 6 months to a year. His infraction was at the homeless shelter. He stole a cell phone from another person. horrible. Especially when you're homeless, you should understand how important that was. And he admitted that he went and traded for crack immediately because he could not control himself. He's an out of control crackhead. Every time he goes to prison, there is absolutely no help for him at all. So they just incapacitate him for 6 months to a year, throw him back on the street, and he's back to the same shit. A very emotional person, also a cutter. This is just a weird, reoccurring thing that I had never experienced before. So his situation is we're trying to get medical records, which are a mess because he can't read or write. So when he signs, his signature is different every time. So like, we can't get your records. And finally we get records, and yeah, he's full schizophrenia with bipolar and other stuff. I mean, wow, no one's addressed this. So anyway, get to know him really well. And it's the same attorney with both these people because I assigned him multiple attorneys, and he's like me. He hasn't been to prison, but he bonds with these people. That's one of my problems with social work is don't get personal. No, get personal. Just know it might fuck you up in the end, but get personal because that's what you're fucking paid to do.
That's right.
And that's the only way you can be effective.
Here, here.
Yeah. So anyway, we go to court, and the judge gives him probation. The attorney basically says that you've locked him up. Well, not that judge. He's committed 7 felonies, been locked every time. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same shit and expecting different results. And the judge was like, okay, I'm not going to send you to prison or jail. I'm going to release you today. As soon as he walked out of the courtroom, the attorney goes, Peoria is coming to get him. He's got a warrant up there. Like, oh my God. This has been close to a month. He supposedly has a jury trial up there in the middle of August, so hopefully it'll blow over. But the fact, they don't have mitigation people up there. I mean, attorneys can do a lot of mitigation on their own, but the fact that they don't have somebody who just does this all day doesn't bode well. We sent all his records to them, which worked here, so hopefully it works there. But just again, that's 2 instances, that technically we won. We got the minimum sentence and we got probation, which was a minimum sentence. And both these people are still sitting in jail cells, and nobody's getting help for their mental health issues. The first gentleman doesn't even smoke weed, no drugs at all, but the older gentleman, he's not going to get rehabilitative stuff. That doesn't really so much exist in county jails. The Champaign County Jail, Rosecrans used to teach anger management and some drug courses in there. They no longer do. But in this jail, an organization called GROW, which is a very smaller, underfunded organization, teaches 4 classes a week. And their waiting list is about 80 for men and about 10 for women, because there's a lot less women population in the jail. So they're just not getting the resources in there. So unfortunately, I hate to be this way, but they're probably going back once they get out. And it's just, it sucks.
And when you're working at the level you're working, which is what I felt in child welfare too, is you're in the trenches. So you see case by case, you see real human beings that are suffering. And then in your doctoral research, are you looking at this is not working? I helped write a book, Moral Injury Within the Child Welfare System, but the book is basically about how we're failing to really help families who have issues that lead them to the point where there might be child maltreatment or neglect. Is your research about how to fix this fucked up system?
In a small way, in an abstract way. Basically, to summarize my dissertation stuff, I'm all about social capital. And it kind of plays back to where I said I was built up. Because what I'm seeing is a lack of social capital. The African proverb, I don't know the exact words, were basically a child who isn't accepted by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. Ooh. And that, to me, is somebody who's not accepted, has not developed social capital, gets to a point where they don't care anymore. Another part of it is shame. So many people don't feel shame anymore because they're not embarrassed of anything. They don't give a fuck. I say I don't give a fuck. I obviously do about most things, but there's so many people that there's nobody watching over them. This comes back to some urban planning things with Jane Jacobs. I'm not going to get deep, but her belief was that the world, in America in particular, has changed so much because 50 years ago when crime was lower, well, violent crime was, actually all crime was lower. Of course, there were less people, but I don't have the exact measurements, but people would hang out on their porch till 8 or 9 at night. They would observe their community. They would know their neighbors. Now we enter a community where you don't want to know your neighbors. I was that way for my whole life. Don't come fucking visiting me. Don't you dare knock on my door asking for sugar. But now I know both my neighbors, and I kind of like it that way. Of course, now I'm not involved in any kind of crime, so I don't mind people being in my business. Now, my dissertation, I said social capital and shame are big things, but I owe all of my evolution and changing and departing from my criminal ways to academia, even though I despise academia. We'll say this, college. It's the same thing, but I just hate saying it. But it looks at how I'm involved in a rather large network. One of the groups I'm involved in is the formerly incarcerated college graduate network, which is about, I don't know how many, but it's a few hundred PhDs who have been to prison, most of them doing a lot more time than me. One of the biggest claim to fame is two of my mentors from that group have PhDs in psychology, and the American Psychological Association actually had a question about a criminal background, and they fought and got it removed about 3 years ago. Now, they could still, for certain issues, they could disclude you, but they're like, no, this is just bogus as fuck. And I'm looking at the social capital that college supplies to you. A lot of people talk about, well, these credentials, your MSW, your PhD, that's what's going to help you. No. I think about quitting the PhD all the time. My thing is I just have too much fucking time and money in it, but it's not worth it because I'm where I want to be even with the PhD. Perhaps I'll actually write books that people will buy. Perhaps not. But my take is, yes, them credentials might help your earning, but what's going to help your peace of mind and make you a hero and make you a good person is the informal, the relational social capital, the people you meet and the people that meet you. And not just professors, because professors have been the link, but me being in college has also gave me access to a lot of other people through the professors and through like research projects. So you could be like, well, that's kind of contradictory. If you're meeting these people through school, then isn't it school? Yeah, but that's the difference between institutional social capital, which is your credentials and all this, and the relational, the relationships that you make while in there. And even if you can't do it in a college setting, there's other settings. I'm an atheist, but the church is a setting where a lot of people can do it, especially black youth. If you get the right job on accident, that can set you up and link you to all kinds of people. But the reason social capital is so important to formerly incarcerated people was it gets you past checking the boxes on housing, on employment.
Yes.
And for instance, my last few jobs, I work at the county public defender's office. I didn't get a background check. They knew exactly who they were getting into because of the social capital I developed through LinkedIn with people. They knew my story. They knew what I was about. The place I rent right now, it probably would rent for about $1,400, $1,500 a month in Champaign. I pay $750. There was no background check. There was no deposit because it's somebody that I met through Parkland long ago. And actually, she's on the board of directors of my nonprofit, which is pretty much defunct now, but we got to know each other. And academia, even though I was asked at UIC, where I'm at now, on the graduate application, it doesn't even ask about your background any way, shape, or form. U of I was really bad because you get to the actual last fucking page. And you're like, oh, I'm done. And it's like the second to last thing. Oh, have you ever been convicted of any kind of crime, misdemeanor or felony? Please supply us the paperwork. They don't ask what you did. I understand if I was a sex offender and I couldn't live or interact with certain people, if I was a murderer, like... I was a failed drug dealer, okay? But UIC doesn't ask about that, even though my entire personal statement was about that. So hopefully somewhere in there you found the answer to your question.
It's interesting because I did 15 episodes for my first season of the podcast. The theme was social work practice meets lived experience. So it was like I was trying to explore with people what it's like to take the practice of what we know about what it's supposed to be, the theories about social work practice, but how do we live that out? Well, this time you're my fourth interview for this season, and this season I'm focusing on curiosity, compassion, and connection, which fits with everything you just said. I think that if we could just stay curious about people and in the midst of that curiosity have compassion for their situation and then honest to God connect with them, I think that's what we're all so afraid of. Because it's nice when you connect with somebody and they can sort of give you a leg up. But what does it feel like when you're the one giving someone else a leg up? I think that feels good too.
Oh,
Connecting.
yeah, no, it definitely feels good because I've heard, I think I put this in a Substack, but I've heard this a few times and it makes me cry happy tears when I get home. I'll be in a room interviewing somebody in jail and they're not giving it up. So, the guy's got a drug problem. He won't tell me. He stole a bunch of money. What'd you spend the money on? All this. Dude, I've done an ounce of cocaine in a night. Whoa. Yeah, you shouldn't know what that means, but you know what that means. And then I explain, like I've been to prison, I tell them my story, then all of a sudden we've bonded.
Yeah.
And again, just because two people are in prison, we ain't brothers. We ain't necessarily friends. There's some bad fuckers who are in there, and there's some people who would think I'm a bad fucker.
Yeah.
But it does, that shared trauma gives you a weird kind of trust. You're not really bonding, but it does open the doors. But the reason I get that is once I disclose that to them, we'll talk for an hour, a half hour. Then I got to press the button, which lets the correctional officer know to come open the door because I'm locked in there with them. No fear. I mean, they're in jail. Plus, I can take care of myself.
I've seen pictures of you.
Yeah, but it's never got heated. But then on the way out, they'll kind of stop, and it's happened 3 times, and 3 hard, we'll just say hard people who may not get out. They're like, dude, it's just crazy they're sending somebody like us in here. It makes me think that maybe there is hope once I get out. It's like, oh, dude, well, there's hope, definitely. There definitely is. Don't let go of that. And I've given up quite a few times, but not recently, so because things are going okay. But it's okay to give up for a night as long as you wake up. As long as you wake up and get back at that shit the next day. Mm-hmm. Also, you mentioned something about a lived experience that I want to touch on.
Okay.
I don't think I touched on this last time. So I got my first publication out. It's a real short one, which is great because I hate academia, and I got an official, legitimate publication that's 3 pages long. That's just about me. It's called Teaching Criminology as a Formerly Incarcerated Person. And I don't just talk about my experience, but I talk about lived experience. And I talk about what I have now, which is lived expertise, which is not superior to lived experience. Lived experience is somebody who just got out of prison 6 months, 6 days, 6 years ago, who didn't really stay in the game and go to college for it. Me, I'm somewhat jaded. I've been out for almost, well, I think it actually has been 20 years now. And now I'm studying it. I'm not that same person anymore. And a lot of people look up to me and think they can include me in their academic discussions and not include people with lived experience who aren't in academia, and that's just BS. And what really concerns me is Glenn Martin. I bring him up a lot. He was in a movie 13th. He's a formerly incarcerated person in New York who doesn't do activism. He started a group, Just Leadership, got screwed out by white women, because nonprofits, even though he was the face of it, out of it. So he just, I believe he's a millionaire. He owns a bunch of property in New York, but he hires formerly incarcerated people and rents to formerly incarcerated people, which is much better than most nonprofits do when they're just trying to pay directors and stuff. The reason I bring him up is he has a quote that I learned when I first got into this game about 10 years ago, that those closest to the problem are closest to the solution. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm no longer closest to the problem. I like to think I'm closest to the solution, but am I? We have to listen to people like me, but we also have to listen to people just coming out of prison because I don't understand. Well, I understand, but I can't feel what they feel. It's kind of like a white person getting involved in the fight against racism. You got to be careful. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm on your side. Mm-hmm. I can try to walk in your shoes. I can try social relativism, but sometimes it gets a little annoying when you think you really understand. I mean, speaking of them, which is a face, people coming out of prison might get annoyed by me sometimes because I swear I won't fucking sell out and then I catch myself doing stupid shit. One of the most annoying words in the world to me is resilience. And I use that word recently. Resilience implies that you were just tough enough to stick it out. I wasn't tough enough to stick it out. Shit, I had no fucking choice. We didn't choose this shit. We have to realize that not just me being in prison, but say somebody with ADHD, well, I have that too, extremely severe ADHD, who gets a PhD in psychology, that's a bad example because they still have ADHD. Let's just drop that. Don't need to cut it out, but where I was going didn't work. You understand where I was trying to go as opposed to where I went?
Yes, because you
See,
remind, when you talk about that, every time you say it, it reminds me of the fact that when I got my bachelor's degree, I did my internship at a high school. And the dean of students who I worked with asked me as I was getting ready to leave, he said, "So what are you going to do when you get out of here?" I said, "Well, I'd really like to do substance use counseling." And he said, "Well, you about have to be a substance abuser yourself in recovery to get that job." And I was like, for once it worked in my favor. I've been in AA for 10 years. So,
oh, okay.
I
I didn't
already
know.
was in recovery, in a recovery program. And it is, honest to God, what landed me my first job with a mental health center as a substance use counselor was because I was an ex-drunk, former drunk, still a drunk on a better path. Now we try not to use those words like I'm a drunk, because we say I'm a person with a substance use disorder, and I understand all
Oh,
the
we're talking about
philosophy
this then.
behind it. However, what saved my life was going and sitting around a table with a bunch of other people and saying, "Hi, I'm Linda and I'm an alcoholic." I still love to say it, and I haven't had anything to drink in. This is 26, so I quit in 80. What is that? 46 years. I've been without anything to
Congratulations.
drink. So, I still know who I am. Just like you,
Yep.
when you talk about going to prison, that is a part of your lived experience that goes with you. And the way I
Hmm.
lived my life for several until I was 30 was, I was in it. I was drinking a lot. I know who that person is too. I don't
Yeah,
look like
that's a
her
great
anymore.
analogy. It's a perfect analogy because me with the ADHD, well, that's not behind you, so you are still doing it. That's why I was like, yeah, this is a bad example, but your example was perfect. I don't love all the language games, for instance, not calling people drunk, especially yourself. You can call yourself whatever you want. Now, in academia, I use formerly incarcerated, and I do that a lot
Mhm.
because I don't think it really masks what we've done. But we use the term systems impacted, which everyone's fucking systems impacted. You are completely trying to mask what happened in hopes that the opposition is dumb enough to think the stigma follows the terminology, not the actual act. And that's where I am with substance use. Well, it's not abuse. If you look at the definition in the dictionary, I believe it is.
This is what bothers me about the work that you do, the work that I've done over the years, the whole teaching profession and everything, is that we espouse these wonderful, lofty ideals, and then we still, like you say, as systems, and we impact people with our systems in a way that just we fuck them over and over. If you're poor, it's hard to get up above that poverty level. It really is, because I don't know. We're still at the point where we think that people should pick them up. So I guess I should say we're back to the point of pick yourself up by your bootstraps, which nothing pisses me off more, because
But that
we got a
austerity,
criminal in the
that's
fucking
just,
White House who made
yeah.
$1.6 billion in 18 months, and he's okay. But your guy
Well, I just
steals a cell phone at a homeless shelter and he's going to fucking jail. What in the hell?
Well, here I got a story for you that plays into the whole thing. So another client, I don't know exact age. He's old. He's dying of cancer. He lives on $900 a month, Social Security. Just smokes weed all day. Can't complain because I mean you're dying. Anyway, kitty porn on his phone. He's going to die in prison. I'm really scared of it. We're doing everything we can, but the case is bad, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but I got to read the discovery, and he tells me it was an accident. I read the discovery, it was no accident. He admitted quite a few things. Sick old fuck, but whatever. People do sick, weird shit, and they can get better, and maybe he just thinks his life is over or whatever. But the reason I bring that up is we have that going on. This guy who, just give him a freaking break. He won't do it again. Put him on intensive probation where he can't have internet, which there's a chance that'll happen. I don't. But we have a child molester in the White House. Well, people say, well, it hasn't been proven. They won't investigate it. How about you don't investigate my guy? You can't prove it if you're making it illegal to investigate it and take anybody out that tries to investigate it. It's just ridiculous, but it's not just the Trump administration, it's rich people as a whole.
That's it.
Some black kid does the same thing as a rich white kid. The rich white kid, Brock raping some lady behind a dumpster. If that was a black kid, he'd have went to jail, but the judge is like, oh, he's got a future. He's a Stanford swimmer. We can't lock this guy up for raping somebody. Then what is the fucking law for? And that kind of comes down to like the problem we're having now in Champaign with all the gun violence with minors and juveniles. They're trying to upgrade these juveniles, 15, 16-year-olds, to adults to try them in prison. Well, why is 18 even considered an adult if you're allowed to skirt around there? The frontal lobe isn't developed. They don't understand the risks they're taking. It just sucks when you have a kid that's accused of horrible things and you talk to them on the phone in the juvenile detention center. They're like, my mom said I might get electronic monitoring before my birthday.
Oh God.
And it's like, dude, you're not getting out until you're old.
Yeah, working with juveniles is tough. I think that's why child welfare is such a
Oh
tough
yeah.
field, because you're constantly dealing with families, and families don't work perfectly. I don't know if you've noticed that. I was working in the field of substance use counseling with adolescents. And I have twin daughters who, one of them passed away, but the one who's still living turned 50 this year. So it's been a few years ago, but I was working in the field, and those girls smoking dope, drinking alcohol, just going off the charts, wild and crazy. And I was like, this is what I do for a living, but I can't fix my kids.
Yeah.
Families are complicated.
I,
We were talking about academia and how much I get pissed off about it. But as I was hearing you talk, I thought you and I are both examples of probably our greatest impact on the lives of other people are the people we've taught.
yeah. Oh no, that's definitely true. Because even
Because
when I'm
I've
on
done
the
a lot of
classroom,
social
like,
work, and I don't know that my social work ever impacted
yeah.
anybody, but I feel like my teaching
Well, you're
does.
probably teaching while doing social work, because I'm teaching while I do mitigation. I'm not saying they're like 1 + 1 = 2,
Right.
but little life lessons and stuff like that. They are getting. Plus, I teach a little bit of law, but a lot of these people are educating themselves on law as it goes.
We're running out of time. Dang it, I could talk to you
Okay.
forever. What's your final word for this episode?
Those closest to the problem are closest to the solution. I feel a lot of social workers are pushed away from having a personal connection to thing, but I think it's best to have a personal connection. Now I'm going to try telling the story that I told the other day, and I think I can get through without it because this is my main motivation. When I got out of prison, there were 4 people I kept contact with, and all of them are gone before I got. Oh, Jesus, maybe not. Yeah, no, fuck that. I'm getting through this. Not 4. 4 of them are dead. First, we have Lamar, the black man, and he's doing just fine. And we've talked about this, and he says, I'm black. I was built for prison. Wow, that's fucking stupid. Not that he said it, the fact that he has to feel that way. And that's the one success story out of the group.
Wow.
Second was Scott, meth head. Funny story, in prison, I was a coke head, he was a meth head. Us coke heads would sit around like, we ain't ever doing that shit again. Meth heads sit around like, I can't wait to get out and start cooking shit again. And we talked for a couple years out of prison, disappeared off the face of the earth. He's not incarcerated, so I assume he's probably dead or who knows. Third, somebody who helped me a lot in work release that I knew from the world. He was more the brother of my friend than my friend, but we got out about the same time and started hanging out a little bit. I actually got him into Parkland. Again, I wasn't really active with my incarceration stuff. It was just a favor to a friend. Then he quit talking to me and quit coming to Parkland, and after about a year, a friend in common, Parkland, sat down next to me and pushed the News Gazette. And it turns out this man had just got sentenced to 120 years for touching his girlfriend's 7-year-old girl repeatedly. Without details, my first thought was denial, so it was like, what exactly was he doing? And she clarified everything. Then there was one more.
It's okay.
Zach, We actually talked about doing a podcast a lot together. Oh
Aw.
boy, he fucking hated Trump. He was cool. We didn't really get along that well in prison. We were in prison and work release together, but we just bonded over Facebook. And his situation was he had sold heroin that led to someone dying because it was cut with fentanyl. Back before fentanyl became a big thing, and I really didn't realize how bad that had fucked him up because he hit it pretty good. One morning I wake up and we didn't have friends in common, but everyone was tagging him. And, why'd you do it? Wife and 2 kids. Ah. Shotgun in a closed casket. I don't know if he was high or it just got to him. But I constantly have to deal with the fact that if I would have gotten into this business or whatever the fuck I'm doing, maybe he wouldn't be dead. Maybe that 7-year-old kid wouldn't have got raped and my friend wouldn't be doing life in prison. Maybe Scott would have quit doing the meth. Maybe I could have reached all of them and helped them. There's that word, help. I was too late. And can't let that happen again. Can't let it happen again. Oh, God, I've told that story about 7 times. I told it in front of 100 students at UIC and cried. A couple of them cried with me, but still, it's weird because I should have adjusted by now.
Oh, I don't think so. Not that kind of stuff. I don't think we ever, that kind of pain, the same thing. If I talk about my daughter who died, fuck me, I'm gone. Those are deep, deep pains. But here you
Yep.
are still doing the work.
And the reason I got to talk about it is because other people have the same situation, and that points out, like, oh, it's not just me. Not only me that has friends taking their lives, not only me has friends that do fucked up stuff. It hurts to be so close to it personally, but it also motivates me, where I can't let that shit happen no more. And hopefully I haven't.
Thank you, Chris, for trusting us with your story, and thank you for continuing to do the hard work that you do. Those of us in this field know that the work is not only professional, it is extremely personal. For those of you listening, I hope that you will take care of yourselves, be kind to yourself and to one another. Keep thinking with me. Peace.